Greetings, Missouri Zoglings. My name is Pastor Martin Luther Dzerzhinsky Lindstedt, aka known as Mad Dog or Mad Dog the Conqueror. And folks, I want you to know that as of today, well, as of a couple of days, I am now a official write-in candidate for governor. There's a Dave Altus, a Theo Brown Sr., and a Martin Lindstedt. You know, folks, I am the, quote, white supremacist candidate for governor. And let's see, I got today something from the Missouri Secretary of State. The idiot sent it via UPS. I managed to intercept it. And let me go ahead and look at it. I got a call this morning from the Missouri Ethics Commission here. And folks, I'll fill out a number of things. I'm thinking of filling out, let me see, let's look at all the stupid crap that's in there. Exempt candidates. Alright. A copy of your candidate declaration. Okay, I got me a letter without a stamp on it. Notice the candidate. Okay, candidate information. Got that? Essentially what it is, this is acknowledgement here, witnessed, that I received. Okay, I'll go ahead and fill that out here. It says sign here that I received all this packet here. This is a file stamped October 25th, 2016. Let me see, what is this? A Missouri Financial Disclosure Statement. Register for that here. Statement of exemption or rejection. Folks, I think I'm going to form a campaign committee and I'm going to form a political action committee. So, you got a couple of these here, which is fine. I don't know how I got so many. Finance Committee registration packet. Okay, Missouri Ethics Commission, where to form and register a committee. Okay, campaign material identification, guides to ethics law. Folks, I don't know why, but in essentially a time of Hillary Clinton, using her, Clinton Foundation to essentially create a gigantic slush fund to go ahead and, in age of Hillary Clinton and her corruption, to which the Negro Department of Justice people. I mean, Hillary can do whatever the hell she wants to here. And Obama, he's in with it too here. He said he didn't know about Hillary Clinton's email server, and he went in and sent her a message to her email server. Don't you like it here? I look like the governor here. So anyway, if you are a voter in Missouri, what I would like you to do is essentially write in, Martin Lindstedt, Pastor Lindstedt. Mad Dog may not work as good here. It's Lindstedt here. Unlike Trader Glenn Miller, who was running for a number of things, it didn't mean any of it here. He was allowed to run for United States Senator at the same time I was refused as both a Republican and as a Libertine, kicked off the ballot as a Libertine. And folks, I was allowed to run for about a week as a Libertine, but the crooked Libertines got together in a little mob, and then just like Libertines do, whenever they get a majority, they vote away the rights of others, and they whine like a bunch of wusses. Wusses here about the tyranny of the, majority. Libertines essentially are pieces of crap. They don't believe in their Libertine crap in any case here. They're just simply want to be, in the case of Gary Johnson, a cuck, Republican, and the case of, William Weld, a double cuck, Puritan Republican. Anyway, folks, I have a number of things, folks. For any war spread out, but folks, just suffice to say, I am the alt-right, white supremacist write-in candidate for governor of Missouri. That's all you need to know here. I did have Roxy, she said she voted for Trump. She wrote in my name. She's also running as the Libertune candidate for coroner. And folks, she's going to go ahead and detect a lot of cases of pig-lice testicle eating syndrome if she gets elected. And I'm going to be the sub-coroner if I don't become the governor here. So anyway, sort of like the Walking Dead here, while I'm the governor. Anyway, folks, I'm going to form a 10,000 Warlords Political Action Committee. And what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to use it to pay $400 along with the Church of Jesus Christ Christian Area Nations of Missouri. Money will go from that particular PAC to essentially file for a lawsuit to essentially overturn the election results from 2016 back to 2006, because these essentially mainly Republican politicians but Democrat Secretary of States, and along with Roy Blunt, and all these other people who benefited, these political parties have benefited from not allowing, quote, white supremacists like myself and this traitor Glenn Miller, who's a drunken Lumbee Melungeon who's on death row for gunning down 3 Mongols like was planned here. And I'm going to be suing him and Alex Linder. I think I'll sue both Alex Linder and Trader Glenn Miller for $1. And if Trader Glenn Miller loses, for the right to essentially impose his own, suicide death sentence here, to where we'll take up a collection here for Trader Glenn Miller to essentially drink and smoke himself to death. I mean, that evil, drunken, Lumbee, rat, Melungeon, who's been working with a number of other Zog butts and Zogtards from 1976 here. I mean, you go ahead and let him have a case of, that crappy Jim Beam whiskey and a carton of Marlboros here. I mean, heck, he'll just smoke and drink himself to death here and save the people of Kansas essentially about another 5 or 10 years of housing him now that his liver and his lungs are on the mend, since he's been locked up in jail since, April of 2014? Well, Trader Glenn Miller worked, along with Alex Linder, to essentially deny us, quote, white supremacists the ability to run for federal, state, or local office in Missouri. In addition, last year they pretty well violated the Missouri Constitution by saying that now you have to have a pig license in order to run for sheriff. First time in 195 years that Missouri was a member of the Union. Of course, during the late unpleasantness of Civil War I, parts of Missouri, especially in this county, Neosho was the Confederate capital of the Civil War. Why they denied they were part of the Union. But folks, essentially, a Republican form of government is a lie. Democracy is a lie. Because the election is rigged, and the very first way they rig it is that politicians get together and they do exactly what Joseph Stalin and Mao Zedong and Robert Mugabe do. They set up a Democratic People's Republic and they determine who gets to run for office. I remember in 2010, I've gotten out in that house and I'm saying, hey, I want to run for United States Senate. You can't. You're a white supremacist. We won't accept your filing fee. And Robin Carnahan, the Democrat Secretary of State, allowed that. Essentially in 2014, Jason Kander, he's a big piece of crap. But folks, if you have room, vote for him instead of Roy Blunt. Essentially the Roy Blunt, criminal family needs to be run out of Missouri politics, just like the Bushes. Donald Trump run out the Bushes, at least this last degeneration, run out the Bushes. And the Clintons need to be run out. They're a crime family. So is Roy Blunt. So folks, Jason Kander is a piece of crap. He went to Afghanistan and essentially he wants to go ahead and bring in all the Mexicans here on the ballot. But at the same time, he doesn't want to allow white men to run for office openly as white men. Folks, democracy is a lie. And I intend to file, essentially on behalf of the Church of Jesus Christ Christian, Area Nations, and the 10,000 Warlords PAC, for essentially a legitimate form of government which is run by warlords, local warlords. I believe that, the state of Missouri, just like Germany in the Middle Ages, Germany and Missouri about the same size, we could have 1,000 warlords over what? Ruling over 10% of the population, which should be white, as well. Pastor Lindstedt, area man, with an Armageddon plan. Well, folks, do have an Armageddon plan. Folks, we can, essentially vote that we don't recognize the legitimacy of this government, of this pretend form of government. Because if you're going to claim to be a republic, that means you have to have open, free, fair, honest elections. That means that you got to allow just anybody to run. And when you say that we're not going to allow just anybody to run, we're going to go ahead and allow, illegal Mexicans, we're going to go ahead and allow Negroes who don't produce anything. We're going to allow essentially tax consumers to both vote and to run for office, but we're not going to allow, quote, white supremacists or alt-right or, white nationalists or white separatists to run. Essentially what you're doing is you're saying that every white man is a slave to this government. And we don't have the right to alter or abolish this government. And folks, we do anytime we want. Anytime we get enough, we can say enough. And essentially then it becomes a matter of open political force. And folks, a vote for me in the privacy, simply, Pastor Martin Lindstedt, or just simply Pastor Lindstedt or Martin Lindstedt, Lindstedt. It's a Swedish name. Better than half my family comes from southwestern Sweden, aka Helsingborg/Scania province. Is actually where you're actually Geats, Geats rather than Swedes, more like. But pretty well all my family came from the areas around the Baltic or the North Sea. In any case, and Lindstedt means tree farm. It means tree homestead. It means fortified tree holding. So anyway, that's the way to remember it. Lindstedt. And anyway, I will be on whitenationalist.org/forum if you have any more questions. And anyway, folks, if you're a white nationalist, or even if you are, folks, essentially, if they're not going to allow just anybody to run for office, that means, for sheriff or anything like that, that means that essentially you don't have any moral, and I would say you don't have any legal obligation to pay taxes or to obey the laws of this regime, which essentially claims to rule over you, but essentially doesn't even follow their own little precious rules, their own little precious constitution. The United States Constitution says that the federal government will ensure that the states have a, quote, Republican form of government. That means a representative democracy, which means that you do not allow politicians to go ahead and determine who gets to run, even if they're white supremacists. In 1944, in Smith versus Allwright, Lonnie Smith, a Negro sharecropper, decided that he wanted to have the right to vote in the all-white Texas primary. And just like today, these political parties, Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, Constipation, Green, whatever, all these people claim, and I despise the Libertarians and the Constitution Party because the Constitution Party has only one candidate. They wouldn't even allow me to run for governor because they said we get to go ahead and choose who gets to run. I mean, this party is a sham party. It's a joke party. And I remember back in the 90s. Back in the 90s when I signed a petition to allow them to be as a statewide party. And folks, that's why I sued the Missouri Libertarian Party. These people don't believe in freedom. They don't believe in a Republican form of government. They don't at all. They just believe in whatever their little gang wants at the time. But essentially the same way with Republicans. Essentially they're a decaying party too. I've been in enough decaying parties, the Libertarians, the Constitution Party, the Reform Party. I've been a number of them to where I can see is that the first time is that somebody goes ahead and gets control of the levers of power, and then essentially what they do is they kick out everybody out of a party they don't want to run. And that's the sure sign of a decaying party. It's dead. It's not around no more. So folks, what I want you to do here is understand is that whether you vote for me or not, just by the fact that my name is on the ballot, you can vote for me or you cannot vote for me. But I'm going to go ahead and claim is that, shoot, anyone who's voted for me or anyone who hasn't voted for me has no obligation to essentially pay federal, state, or local taxes, and has no obligation, moral or legal, to obey the rules of a government which refuses to allow them to meaningfully participate or even have the pretense of it. In Smith versus Allwright, the United States Supreme Court ruled that Lonnie B. Smith had a right, even if he was a Negro, to vote in the all-white Texas Democratic primary. Well, guess what? 70 years later, guess who the new Negroes are? The new Negroes, who the new slaves are the white man. Essentially, they're using us to go ahead and flood this country in, and they don't seem to understand is that, hey, things are going to go ahead and collapse. And the end result is going to be an essentially over everything, military dictatorship or Caesarism. But I believe what there's going to be is balkanization, and there's going to be 10,000 warlords. And folks, morally there should be. No one should be ruled over by someone who doesn't know them, who they don't know, and who they don't even have the option to go ahead and choose or dischoose. Essentially, they've taken away you as a voter, especially you as a white voter. They've taken away any change, any chance you have to make a change, other than voting for Trump. But folks, the election is rigged. The election was rigged from the very start by making sure that certain people like you could not run for office and have representation for yourself. So anyway, please, for yourself and for your people and for your race, vote for me if you live in Missouri, Pastor Martin Luther Drzezinski Lindstedt, Mad Dog the Conqueror, for governor of Missouri. Until later, hail victory.